Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's MenvyWings coming at you from my GTOemga Racing Chair. The time is currently 3:04. That's AM. It's pitch black outside, and honestly, I ate 6,000 calories. I'm not so proud of that. I've got 6 more burgers in the oven right now as we are recording this, but honestly, I really just wanted to talk about the subject of positivity, the mindset, and just general good spirits, especially after this champion selection and, in fact, this game, as the entirety of it has been an absolute joy, and that doesn't happen often. In fact, it rarely happens, and honestly, I don't think I'm alone when I say that, most of the time going into the game, I'm feeling a sort of low anxiety hum, if you will, especially in a champion selection that is quiet or perhaps, a little bit quote unquote flamey. It just isn't a good experience at all. And in fact, most of these wonderful champion selections do often, most of the time, should I say, result in a loss and major tilts. On the other hand, I don't know if it's just me, but I find that opening the match, or perhaps even the champion selection, with a simple hi, hello, how you guys doing, keeping the good spirits up, or at least trying to. Don't get me wrong, there are instances where honestly it's lost, even just in sort of the champion selection. You know this, we know this, everyone knows this, and yeah, there is that moment of dread going in when you sort of notice the instant lock Yasuo mid that, doesn't even say anything. Always happens to have, a name resembling a Naruto character, specifically, or most of the time, in fact, Sasuke. Sometimes you're Kakashi. You do get the occasional Naruto. But opening with good spirits does have a positive effect on win rates. At least that's what I'm finding. Now, back in sort of silver and gold, honestly, the good spirits, regardless of what happened, they were there throughout the entirety of the game. Going into sort of, your platinums and your emeralds, and I'm currently emerald 2, I am finding that if I just power through the negativity and, quote unquote, try to keep the good team spirits, we do better most of the time. Now, don't get me wrong, I did have a couple of loss streaks, nothing major, just the odd sort of 3 or 4 losses. I do hear about sort of, your 8s, 9s and major sort of, loss streaks of 10. They do cause a major tilt, but have you noticed that when you're on a sort of like a loss streak and, you sleep on it, come back, most of the time it happens that you come back to a win? Coincidence, or is there more to it? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not into your woo-woo, like, spirituality, ghosts and positive thinking and, what do they call it? Manifesting, I believe. Honestly, I'm probably the furthest person from that sort of vibe. But the more I sort of think about my matches and the more I sort of actively try to be positive, especially from the get-go, introducing yourself, having a laugh or joke, as we've seen in sort of the earlier sort of section of this footage, oftentimes it does mean we end with a win. And those times that you know, the times that we don't, because, you know, we get steamrolled, or in fact the sort of, you know, champion selection just, you know, wasn't gonna result in anything, I have made a couple of decent friends from, I say friends, perhaps that's a very strong word, as, you know, it's really difficult to make quote-unquote friends on sort of League of Legends mobile, but I'll probably talk about that in another one of these sort of venting podcasty-esque videos. But the losses, especially when you open positive in sort of the champion selection and, you know, the earlier sections of the game slash match, often meant that I was able to, even from a losing match, gain a remarkably, I say remarkably, a decent duo queue partner. You know, game state or mindset, in fact, does matter a lot. And I do really think you should be picking up the players that are positive, that are, you know, they don't necessarily flame, although, you know, even the positive ones, you know, do flame sometimes. I do have a duo or partner or two that are an absolute blast most of the time, until, you know, someone does something stupid too many times. There is a limit, don't get me wrong, but I do find that I win a lot more games with positive people. What do you guys think? Is that what you're finding during your game times as well, or am I just, you know, going crazy here? Perhaps it's just the fact that the losses, especially the ones involving flaming, raging, and borderline retardation, perhaps those just feel harder, and the positive games where, you know, no tilts occurred and flaming was kept to minimum, perhaps those just don't feel as bad. But honestly, I do genuinely feel a positive mindset does have a positive effect on your win rate. What are your thoughts on that? And whilst we are on the subject of good spirits and positivity, how do we feel about someone saying "my bad" when they make a absolutely atrocious play? In fact, that's how I scored, I believe, the only death in this match. It was just, honestly, it's, I don't know what I was doing. A chimpanzee could have made a better play. But yeah, I shot a sorry, my bad. No tilts happened. No one called me, you know, a spastic or, you know, a disabled child. So that's always nice. But of course, we are clearly winning. It's 10 versus 3, so perhaps no one's really paying attention to 1 or 2 deaths, even if it's just, you know, stupidity. But honestly, I'm finding even in sort of the losses that, you know, a my bad does sometimes, and I say sometimes, stop the, you know, the average sort of I'm about to flame you person. And, you know, that just results in a sort of, you know, rather than, you know, them screaming report X, they tend to just say, okay, cool, play safe. And it just tends to, I wouldn't say make the match more enjoyable, because that's a stretch, but it does keep, I suppose, teamwork up, if that makes any sense. I mean, there needs to be a certain level of good spirits in a team. And I do realise this is absolutely, you know, a almost impossible task for, you know, a solo queue match for, you know, 20 minutes or sometimes more, sometimes less. But yeah, there is that side to it as well. So I am genuinely curious as to what your experiences have been like. Whether it's a trend that you're noticing. Have you noticed anything similar? Have you noticed, perhaps you lose more games when you're in a negative mood? I say negative. I think the right word would be competitive or overly competitive, sorry. And yeah, I never really. I don't think I'd go as far as to saying that I fully enjoy playing sort of, League of Legends or in fact any MOBA unless I'm dominating or we're on track to win. If it's a close call, then honestly, it's borderline torture, and yes, that is not good for a video game. But it is what it is when you have to live with it. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts, whether I'm going crazy or perhaps that is what is going on, and there is some wildrift or summoner's rift god, and he does bless the positive ones with, a win rate queue, or win rate increase in the queue. I'm gonna go grab my burgers and I'm gonna wolf down the entirety of them, that's 6, and I'm gonna try to squeeze in another game. But I hope you've somewhat enjoyed listening to me ramble on about nonsense. And again, we have another mindless ape death coming up on the screen. I do apologize for that, but I hope this was somewhat pleasant to listen to and not excruciatingly torturous. But I hope you have a very lovely night, day, or perhaps evening, whichever applies to you, and as always, take care of yourselves.